Talk about the map, because I've been seeing this all over your social, and obviously you were, going into it like, why? My question is, why wasn't this done like years ago? And all of a sudden, what gave you the idea to implement it? And like, talk more about the map.
Dean, you know what? That's a great question. And the map was the culmination of a desire that I had to understand the market better. And I will tell you that, a big part of my brokerage practice always has been development sites in New York. And New York doesn't have rolling pastures of land. Generally, you have to acquire a number of small, crummy buildings, knock them down to create a piece of land on which to build a new building. And remarkably, for a market that is so big and so sophisticated, there was really not a very robust data set of the construction pipeline in New York. And there are rental apartments, there are condos, there are office buildings, hotels, educational facilities, healthcare buildings, and virtually no information about the supply that's under construction, other than the most residential firms in New York will publish a report on the condos that are under construction. But firm A will say, oh, there's 9,000 under construction, and firm B will say there's 5,000 under construction. And then I asked them how they calculated their numbers, and they will start counting at a certain point in time. They'd stop counting at a certain point in time. If the developer bought a site, but plans hadn't been approved yet, does that count? And everyone was using different metrics. So I said, you know what? If I stand in front of a building that's being constructed, I know it's being constructed. It's not rocket science, but I just have to go out and walk the streets. And I've wanted to do this for 10 years. I wanted to know what the pipeline was, because when you're looking at the value of a piece of land, the value is very dependent upon what is that building going to be competing with when it gets built. What other newer properties have been built? So you need to know what else is in the pipeline. So for 10 years, I wanted to get out and actually do a physical count of the buildings. Well, who has time to do that? So yeah, March 12th, we're told, go home for 2 weeks while we let this pandemic blow over, and then you come back. And my doctor actually called me that night and said, hey, Bob, there's a rumor going around that they may just quarantine the entire city, entire Manhattan. They're going to shut the bridges and tunnels. Get out of town while you can. So I got in the car with my wife and daughter, go up to the country house in Connecticut, and we left in kind of a rush. And 2 weeks later, it was clear that we weren't going to be back in the office. So I said, hey, I've got to go back to the apartment and get some stuff. And so I pull off the FDR Drive, pull onto the Upper East Side, and it was like going into a movie set of a science fiction movie. There was not a person around. Every store was closed, no cars on the street. It literally was like a movie set. And it occurred to me, hey, you know what? If I'm ever going to go count buildings, this is the time to do it. So I called up my team. I said, hey, get into the office, make copies of the Sanborn tax lot map. And I had sections of this map. And over the next 4 months, I spent 220 hours in the field and would get in the car, stop at point A, get out, walk around for a half hour, get in the car, go to point B, get out, walk around for a half hour. And I had highlighters, and I highlighted every building that was under construction or a site had been demolished, highlighted that in green. Any building that looked like it was built to less than 25% of its maximum density, I highlighted in orange. Potential assemblage sites, I highlighted in yellow. And then we got back to the office, started doing research on all these sites, started taping pieces of the map together to see what was happening in a neighborhood. Before I know it, I had a map that was 24 feet long and 10 feet wide. We had identified every single property that was under construction. Subsequent to doing that field work, which finished up at the end of the summer of 2020, we've tracked every demolition permit the city has issued, every construction permit, building permit, foundation permit. And so we have the development pipeline disaggregated into 5 buckets: residential rental units, condo units, hotel, office, and then a miscellaneous bucket for everything that doesn't fit into the first 4, like school buildings and hospitals, healthcare buildings, that kind of thing. But we have the development pipeline nailed down to the square inch. So when we're looking at a development site, we can tell you with complete accuracy what the comp set is going to look like for the space or the units that that new building will be competing with when it's completed. And so, I created I had this giant 24-foot long map. I'm at JLL at the time. And I went to the folks there and said, hey, I need a room to put this thing on display, because I had been rolling it up and carrying it around to clients' offices. And I got caught in the rain one day. And I'm like, hey, this is not good. And JLL, of course, didn't have space for me. If they gave me 600 feet, they'd have to give everybody 600 feet. And so I went, rented space, created the Knakal Map room. And while I was at JLL, I would work out of the JLL offices on Monday and Friday, and I'd work out of the map room on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then after my departure from JLL, I was working in the map room 1.0 full time. And now I'm in, as of 2 or 3 weeks ago, in map room 2.0. So more elbow room, more space. I have about a dozen people at the company now, and we're doing the same thing I've done for 40 years, which is selling properties and focusing on land sales.